Thanks to Token Engineering Academy, whose invitation to collaboration gave me this amazing opportunity to review all these great platforms. And of course, special thanks to Token Terminal for offering us this exclusive tour of their premium products. Our review today is going to explore the platform from the perspective of how it helps tokenomic engineering and analysis. We're going to focus on 4 key themes: data coverage, what kind of data is being served on the platform, and how much of it provides insight into fundamental processes and activities taking place outside of exchange markets. Accessibility and flexibility. How easy is it to explore data directly on the platform and to export it to other work environments for further analysis and exploration? Documentation. How rigorously and thoroughly are the methods and definitions used by the platform described and communicated? There are always assumptions and workarounds involved, and it really helps us to understand what they are. And finally, best practice innovation. How does the data offering and the auxiliary resources around that support innovation and the development of best practices for analysis in tokenomics? This format will be applied to review 5 data providers in total. You can watch the whole lot in that playlist that's showing up on your screen now. And if you want more background on why I'm doing things this way, check out my earlier video explaining the importance of data to tokenomic engineering and analysis. This common approach will also help us compare all these platforms at the end in a final video, so make sure that you stick around for that. Ready? Let's go. So now at Token Terminal, and I've just logged in, and this is what greets me. This is my home screen, and there's nothing in it. I presumably I could populate this with a few favorite items, but this is already a completely different kind of experience, right? There is you're not being shown everything that's happening, everything everywhere at once. It you choose where you want to go, and it will show you what you want to see or what you've clicked on. Everything's sort of quite minimalist. Let's be frank here as well. Like Token Terminal serves a smaller range of data to its clients, so it can be much more neatly organized, but there's still a very clear difference in fundamental philosophy over the UX and how we access things. So here on the left, we can expand things out. Actually, let's click on Home. Where does Home take us? We do get a bit of a view, but it's really quite clean. Already, top 25 projects. Let's see, market sectors. I can switch these on and off here. I like that. Display weekly movers in TVL, fees, revenue, price to sales ratio. So this is interesting. You already get a sense that the way we're looking at data, and we're looking at it from the metric view, which naturally leads you into this much more horizontal analysis, which I think on the whole is going to be much more important for you as a tokenomics specialist, because there will be times when you want to drill down on a specific asset. But if you are designing something for a client, whether that's token features, an economic system, or coming to fundraising a token sale offering of some kind, you want to compare yourself to peers in the market. You don't just want to ape one single project. So already we're being presented with a data view that takes that horizontal perspective. Data table. So we have a rich data table with lots of fields here. I can edit this table. Okay, so we'll say more about this later, but this already suggests that I have much granular ownership over the data and how it's being presented to me here, which I like. I can copy a link to this page. I can download the table as a CSV there. And these different views, metrics. So here again, we have all of these different tabs. A little bit of a trend line here. If you like, you can just take a list kind of view. This is really nice. It feels really clean. I don't feel like I'm, it's a style thing, but I just feel so much calmer here than I do in Messari's UX. Totally personal preference point there. That's so cool. What have we actually got here? Active users, again, daily, monthly, weekly, active loans. So we're starting to drill down into some pretty non-trivial data here. We're looking at lending protocols, and we can start looking at what's on here. I can add different projects here to the chart. I can select fields here. This is just a much more richly interactive data experience. Market sector, so we can drill down by market sectors here. Trending contracts, I really like this. So this allows you to find contracts that are active in some sense. So what have we got here? Let's have a look. Gas use. So okay, so you've got a view at the smart contract level, and you can rank it by how much gas has been used by that smart contract, the per share it has of the gas market. This is real economic data. Okay, this is now very obviously a very different beast. Whereas before, where it's all about markets, news, events, what buy, sell, buy, sell. This is like, how is the engine operating? How much gas? Okay, remember, gas is actually a measure of computational work. How much computational work is being associated by the, with this specific smart contract, and what share of the market does it have? This is economic information that goes well beyond, the markets, and this is information that can be used to inform and benchmark your assumptions you make about your work. What is the average gas being used by a project? Where, what should we plan for? How do we optimize around that? Active users, great. Inflows, outflows, beautiful. Financial statements. So this is where Token Terminal have really made a push to differentiate themselves. Let's look at Avalanche. And you've got these, they're calling them financial statements. This is where I'm going to nitpick with them slightly, because, it's not really a financial statement. It's some kind of financial report here. They're trying to recreate the same kind of report in the spirit of a financial statement, right? I love this here. Look, weekly, quarterly, yearly. I can even have the changes reported. So first level differences, show definitions. Wonderful. I have all of this information on here. This is wonderful. I can download it as a PDF, as a CSV. And there's a good amount of information here. It's really amazing that we finally are beginning to get to a point where we can analyze statements like this. Valuation multiples. This is a really commendable effort that Token Terminal are making to make data more comparable. This sort of like is a point on sort of setting best practices and taking leadership about that. I made another video about these kinds of ratios, and while I absolutely think this is the direction we have to go in, I think they can be oversold as a metric given ad availability of data at this point. The entire point of these ratios is to allow us to compare apples with apples. So let's just quickly dive into this. This is what is a price to fees ratio. Sorry, it's circulating market cap over annualized fees, where this is a measure of how the market is valuing a particular asset as a ratio of how much fees its underlying protocol is generating. And that sounds really sensible, but we're not quite at an apples to apples comparison here, because those fees are being used in really different ways, and they're being generated in different contexts, and then those fees have to be used for different costs. So presenting all of this together is a fantastic aspirational step forward. But I think if people don't have this kind of prior understanding and training that, these ratios still require a lot of sort of context and thinking, they may over rely. They may think that more of the problem has been solved for them than it's possible to achieve at this stage. And I think some other very distinguished blockchain commentators and professionals made a point on this recently. People from Gauntlet, Dragonfly Capital, I can't remember the names, but it will come up on the video card. So I'm not alone in having this opinion, but still massive applause for taking the industry and analytical culture and practice in this direction. I think it's the right way to go. And where were we? So we were in financial statements, crypto screener. What do we have here? So this is much more similar to the screener concept that we had in Messari. Insider transactions. This sounds juicy. I wonder Mm, okay, defined, an insider is defined as a top 100 holder of an project's governance token. This is great. This is an economically interesting insight, and they just come up with it here. It's a basic point of inquiry. Cohort analysis. I love this. So cohort analysis. Let's see if I can get this to show up. Look, wow. Okay. You can tell this is a reaction video. I'm just, I've had limited time to look at everything and I'm just recording it all on the fly. Let's see if I can explain what's going on here. When we're building these businesses, there are going to be some key fundamental drivers. And one of those fundamental drivers are users. And we've been already seeing how things like daily active addresses, transaction could begin shed some light on that, that fundamental activity, how many users are engaging with this platform. But we have from Web 2 a very established set of metrics around that provides richness around understanding user behavior that's only just beginning to be adopted in blockchain. Or one of those concepts is cohort analysis. How long do people stick around for? When you onboard some people in the 1st of January of 2021, and then you look at each month, what percentage of those people are still hanging around? This can be really interesting. So you see, we have some different events. If we know from somewhere else that this event was like correlated with some marketing drive or special promotion, that's really interesting. It's too early to have that, relationship in view here. That's asking for too much. But this is great. This already allows you to look at different projects and see, okay, if we have like lots of red here, and look, the fact that we can look over this over time is painting a clear picture already. It's telling us that everyone was super excited for this project when it first came out. Then everybody got bored. Whoa, everybody says something happened and people started getting interested again. And now the reason why it tapers off like this is because, we're still just in October and we don't have that data yet. See, this is already so richly informative. It's wonderful. What a beautiful chart. Stable coins, don't knock stable coins, guys. They are going to onboard everybody. They're going to be the single most important thing most used thing on blockchain. So great that we've got some views here. Outstanding supply tickers. Okay, so fairly standard stuff. Percent off peg. See, this is already thinking about what metrics are interesting. We could calculate this from Masari stuff, but Token Terminal have already put in a bit of thought and like said, okay, this is already an interesting concept relative to their use case that we can represent as a native metric. I think this is really cool. Fundraisers. So Token Terminal also have a fundraise data set, and I'll come back to this when I talk about interactivity. It's very rich. We can sort by round type, by project, by date, lead investors. There's a lot going on here. Okay, so that review shows you where we're naturally led to by this dashboard, which, as I said, takes us in this direction, much more horizontal comparative analysis. But just like you can on Masari, you can take a close view of a specific project. And again, once we do that, a huge amount of extra data opens up. Really good summary views here on the asset. Again, interesting what they choose to show you first, okay? This chart is not showing you price. It's showing you daily fees and daily revenue. That communicates something about the philosophy and interest of this platform. Look at this. Again, this control I have over what I'm shown, all the things. Treasury, I can look at treasury holding for 0x. Oh my goodness. There's just so much to look at here. We've got vesting schedules as well, which let's see if we get something. This one's pretty boring, pretty flat, but there's some great information here. Founding team, the token amount, a description of what the allocation does. This is great. And can I download it? I can download it in CSV format. So this is really impressive. This is coming to Messari as well. Unfortunately, we still have the same issue as before, where we're missing financial information. We're missing the terms on which, well, the price at which tokens were sold privately. But that's generally hard to come by. So it'll be great. Every single platform is struggling with that. But it's very cool that we've got this here as well. Okay, so that's an introduction to everything that's on here. I think you could tell that it puts a lot more ownership in your hands, a lot more control in your hands in terms of how data is structured. Looking at this fundraising data set by itself, we have this mechanic. It's shown up a few times. If you've ever played around with Power BI, Power Query, Tableau, any of these analytics dashboards, they have a very similar interface. So I can, this column here allows me to select different column fields, and I can also put in different groupings. So let's group by lead investors. I'm going to put, okay, lead investors, I now have that. I'm going to put that in the row grouping. And what this is going to do is I can now, it's reorganized the table to allow me to explore at what's going on at that level. What is everything Castle Ventures have done, and still keep this column view of all these fields. I just picked one at random there, to be honest. And you can also create totals, which are interesting. So you have some flexibility. Oh, they do have source. You are provided with information about where this data came from. So that's super, super important. My only issue here is that this table is not, I can't export it. I can view all kinds of things, but as far as I've been able to work out, the only way I can get data out of here is with a good old fashioned drag and click operation. And come on, they've put in so much work. I'm sure it's coming, guys. Sorry, that's just my cynical habits coming out. This is amazing. Absolutely love it. And we can see this flexibility everywhere, right? In the financial statements, we were seeing how we could, create lots of different time aggregations, changes. All this is just really rich, and it just makes me feel like I'm in charge of, how I'm seeing the data presented. What views I'm taking. I can change to a logarithmic scale. There's just so much ownership and interactivity that's served natively on the platform. And that's wonderful. So talking about being able to extract data and interact with it, they offer an API as well. I can actually preview some of that here. I'm going to have to edit that out, but let's try this. And it tells me all sorts of things that I'm getting back. I just queried a list of metrics, and this allows me to preview what data fields and I'm going to be getting: trading volume, transfer volume, assets, active loans, token incentives. What's that? I want to know what token incentives are. Circulating, PF, fully diluted, PF circulating, lots of rich metrics. And if you watch this part on the Messari video, this is clearly, the API gives you access to this full range of broader economic data, whereas the Messari's API was still very much focused on news and market data, market events. So this is really promising. I haven't played around with this too much, but the fact that I'm getting all of these beautiful data items here, it's very promising. And last, but certainly not least, we were incredibly lucky to get a preview of the public beta of Token Terminal's new Data Room offering. The Data Room is Token Terminal's SQL platform, which is served through Google BigQuery. What this platform allows you to do is to query blockchain data, the same blockchain data that Token Terminal is using for its underlying metrics, and to do that with the help of SQL. But you might be saying to yourselves, well, we can already do this on Dune. So how are Token Terminal differentiating themselves here? Well, in 3 ways. First of all, they cover a larger number of chains. Secondly, they run their own nodes, which means that they are getting data feeds real time, which isn't always the case with open providers. And then thirdly, they are maintaining and curating these tables themselves. They have a paid team to do that. It's paid out of their subscription services. And of course, they are actually maintaining data tables that they use themselves to populate their own data. If we look here, we have two levels of organization. They have a blockchain kind of layer where you can zoom into different blockchains. And I've unpacked the Ethereum blockchain there, and we could take a look at the transactions table. And if you zoom into that, it shows you certain things about the schema of that table. But then if we were to look at this, and let's see, is this query up and running? I can't show you this because I've maxed out the credit I had on Google BigQuery playing with this. But if I was to pull through all this data, you would get a result which is similar to what you would find on Etherscan, right? A lot of transactions. And it's not always clear what they refer to because the way that data is generated on a blockchain is dictated by the logic of all the code that's running on it. So one of the main big pieces of work that you need to do in order to wrangle with blockchain data is to transform that raw data into something that makes sense, right? Into something that can be better understood. And Token Terminal have already done a huge part of that work for you by decoding all of the data that's associated with a given smart contract. So if we look at this level here, we have the contracts folder, I guess we could call it. And if we go down, we could eventually find Uniswap version 2. Let's see if I can find that here. Okay, and I'm going to look at Uniswap version 2 on Ethereum. So if we look at what we've unpacked here, we have the pair created event, the burn event, the mint event. And if I go to Uniswap v2's documentation, all of these events line up with specific events that are defined at the smart contract level. We have mint, burn, swap, sync, and each time those events occur on the blockchain, they are tallied up to these tables that Token Terminal have prepared for us. So this is still quite low level, but it does a lot of work in terms of decoding data contract by contract, which is a massive amount of work to do. And that already gives you a lot of structure to begin working with. Now, personally, I would eventually like to see richer abstractions. Token Terminal show that they are very forward-thinking in their ability to tease out additional details that are going to be relevant in their data. But let's be fair to them. This is their public beta offering, and we'll see if they meet that sort of demand for richer metrics, richer abstractions to be created from this low-level data. But this is the fact that they've decoded contracts into tables is already a lot of work. And this layout, I mean, it's very neat. It's all very tidy. They're looking after this. And the experience on Dune, I personally find is a little harder to get around because of this crowdsourcing philosophy that lies at the heart of it. If I can go select the raw blockchain data, and they've also got decoded projects, but if I click on decoded projects, there's just so much stuff. It's harder to navigate. Let's see, I'm going to type in Uniswap and let's see, it's loading results. And I'm going to look up Uniswap on Ethereum. You can see it's already taking its time. It's also because I'm recording, everything runs slower. Uniswap v2. And, you know, there's just so much stuff that's created by the community, which is amazing. But it is, unless you already know what you want and you have that understanding to tell apart what's good quality, what isn't, you're going to be spending extra time trying to find the right tables that you want. Whereas the experience here on BigQuery served by Token Terminal is already curated. You don't have to spend any of that time. And you also gain the benefit of being able to access and manipulate this data in BigQuery, which has some nice analytic features as well. But I was having so much fun with this that I've already maxed out my free credits, so no more demos. So that's a review and special preview look into the data room offering by Token Terminal. Okay, let's look at documentation. That's back over here. If we look at guides, now they have documents, they have metrics, but if you watch the Masari video, you saw that I was just absolutely gushing over what Masari have done. I have to say that given how much work they put into all the other aspects of their platform, I find the documentation it's a little basic. Documentation's a really annoying thing, right? Because you know that it's not going to be relevant to most users are going to come to your platform and they're just going to want to play with the data, and they aren't going to have time to go through everything, and they aren't going to be motivated to do it. So I understand that it's hard to hold this up as a priority, but I do think it's important in some contexts to have that full level of detail there. Let's go to my favorite bugbear issue, market data, which is supply, of course, supply, market data, circulating market. How do we find supply? Circulating supply, here it is. You see, they don't go into anywhere near as much detail here. I know this is a pet issue, peeve of mine, but there's room for improvement here, and it's great. It's good for beginners. It's not intimidating. Someone who comes to Masari probably thinks, "What the hell is this?" But we already sort of have this sort of cheat sheets concept here, right? Which is meant to be a beginner-friendly digest. So why not go into a bit richer detail about how stuff is being used? So that's what's going on with documentation. I don't think it's as strong as Masari, but it's good, and it will be more than what most people will need or use. So it's okay. Okay, so how do we wrap this up into an assessment of how Token Terminal supports idea generation, education, standard setting, best practice development? I think their UX and the way they present some of these very interesting metrics and data points is contributing a lot, actually. But I was just looking at stablecoins, and right there I could look at the percentage DPEGs. They're thinking critically about this data. They're thinking about the economic relevance of this data, and that really is providing some great leadership, even if you don't have a fully worded research document that explains, the insights that are coming in from all these places. So it's subtler in some ways, but it's really important in others how you're being supported to think in more economic ways by this platform. So good marks there.